Welcome to the Saturday WordPress Show by WP-Tonic on Timelines, episode 200-83. Today we have Jason Tucker on the Saturday WordPress Show by WP-Tonic on Timelines. Jason is coming to us from Orange County, California. He's a producer of WP-Tonic and WP Blab, and today we will be doing a deep dive into WordPress graphics and design, as well as talking a bit about how Jason produces his podcast shows. Now, without further ado, I want to get right into this episode with Jonathan and Jason.
See how it goes.
Thanks, Jason, for coming on the show. We've been looking forward to the chat. I have joined in on some of Jason's shows, and I call him Uncle Jason. I just want to explain the endearment of that, Jason, because actually Auntie and Uncle are linked to like the BBC. So I'm comparing you to the BBC, Jason. So
awesome. Thank you.
It's just a great compliment, isn't it? You know, we've got a monthly theme, Jason, and I thought we'd just quickly talk about graphics and what tools and methodologies you use to handle them for your shows and that. And then we go into the amount of work you've got to put into WPwatercooler and WP Blab. And then my co-host, Bill Conrad, can ask some questions on the podcasting side. How's that sound, Jason?
Perfect. Let's do it.
What tools do you basically use when you're handling your graphics for your website, Jason?
Yeah, well, so at the church that I work at, I take care of all of the web type stuff. And so that's my day job, is to do, web development and such. And so what ends up happening is people, that are designers and stuff will do the design work, and then they'll send it to me in a couple different ways, either as a PSD file, so I'm using Photoshop, or as a sketch file. And then I use Sketch to be able to pull that in and look at all of the layouts and stuff, and then kind of start ripping it apart and telling them what they can and can't do in web development. So Sketch is pretty handy for that, because you can at least kind of start with mobile first and then work your way up to desktop and beyond. So yeah, Sketch has been a kind of a big lifesaver for me.
Is that the Mac Sketch, the Apple Sketch, for about $100?
Yeah, it won, it was the 2014 or 2015 Design Award. And then promptly the next year, they dropped themselves out of the App Store because they exceed the stuff that you can only do in the App Store, that they just we don't really care about using iCloud or anything. So, because that's pretty much one of the main reasons why you'd want to have your app in the App Store. So they ditched that, and now they are kind of going independent, and they're doing quite well.
One thing, that's a good point right there, learning about the App Store and buying products. I have some products that aren't bought in the App Store, which work fine, but anything in the App Store today, I can't get to because I can't certify my computer. Unbelievable. Because anything I have, our normal login or sign in, like Call Recorder or any of the other apps, but the App Store is totally toast today because of a resetting. So
I feel a slight stress and a slight hatred towards Apple, Bill.
No, I love Apple, but I love Apple. They just need to fix their friggin' certification. I've had this happen twice in the last 2 years.
Somebody said, Bill, a Chromebook.
Honestly, I have a Chromebook. We have one of our shows is a political show, and we're finding that Chromebook is actually amazing for the value what we're getting out of it.
Yeah. So, Sketch, I'm still using Fireworks a bit. I know Adobe ditched it about 2 years ago.
Well, at least you're not using Image Ready, so that's good.
No, I'm not that old, but and Sketch, I think, is the kind of took over. I thought Fireworks was a great product. It mixed vector and pixel together. I think Photoshop is fantastic, but I always thought Fireworks was a more appropriate mixture for if you're trying to do graphics for websites, but that's just my personal opinion. So we do that.
Use Pixlr too. Pixlr's another good one if you're wanting to use something that doesn't have all of the bells and whistles, but at least get you partway there. Let's use layers and all that sort of stuff. So those are the things that I use for my day job. Now, you're asking about on WPwatercooler or any of the other shows that we're doing. Yeah. I use a couple different things for that. I'm pretty mobile. Like, I'm driving to and from work. I'm walking around. I'm doing a lot of things where I'm not sitting in front of a computer. And so one of the things that I've been using to kind of do quick art is, oh darn, I thought I had it in my head and then it disappeared. Word, what is that thing called? Word something.
PicMonkey.
Yeah, PicMonkey's good.
Yeah, PicMonkey, Canva. Some people use Canva a little bit.
Word Swag.
I haven't heard of that one. Word.
Yeah. So WordSwag, it's great because if you're not a designer, but you want to have something that looks kind of artistic, you can type in some words and then hit a little dice that will kind of, do a randomization of different graphics layouts and then spit out the layout for you.
So I think a lot of graphic designers would like that. Give you some pre-ideas, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So, well, WordSwag, folks. Hopefully
that's on iOS.
Hopefully my co-host will find the URL.
I just dropped it in already.
Oh, great. He's so efficient, folks.
Canva is a huge one.
Apple Store.
Yeah. Canva is a huge one. I love Canva, and I've been kind of pushing the Canva idea out to a lot of our people during my day job. I'm like, if you need to do basic design work where you just slap a couple logos on top of things and move some backgrounds and stuff, it's the perfect way to go for that.
Yeah, I use it as a kind of idea tool just to quickly do some knock-ups, get some ideas. And I also think it deals with, all these insane different ratios for different social media platforms. It does really help with that because you can really waste a lot of time, and it's a bit of a time saver, isn't it, Jason?
It sure is. Yeah, it's a great tool to use.
So what about your social media, getting your images for all your social media? Is it Canva that you rely, or you got some other, you got some kind of system that you utilize to get your images? Or
Canva and WordSwag, those are the two that I use for almost all of my graphic type stuff. I'm not a graphics person. I'm not a designer. And so anything that can do the design for me is huge. So if I just need to have some text with a logo and some type of background, I slap that on there and hit the randomize button until I find something that works and then go run with it.
Yeah, I thought we'd do the kind of theme is graphics for non-designers. That's been the theme of this month, because a lot of people that managing, owning, running websites, they got a lot of different hats to wear, and they might get some of the, get a graphic designer in to help them with the initial design of the website or some logo. But when they're actually running it on a week to week, most people can't afford the cost of having a designer help them all the time. So in the end, they do end up having to do graphics, don't they, Jason?
They do, yeah. Especially if you end up with a few different, raw assets, and they say, well, slap those together and make something show up on the website. You're like, oh, great. I guess I got to figure something out here. Let's load up Preview and see what I can do with Preview,
Just roll the dice.
So yeah, no, we when especially during my day job, I have the benefit of having multiple designers on staff. So being able to ask them for the types of things that I need and showing them what specs I'm using and how I'm building this thing out. It works really well for us, and I'm able to get the information I need and get it sent over to us.
So you don't mind me? Hopefully you won't mind. But so obviously, are you the Mr. IT for this? Is it quite a large church in Los Angeles? So I get the impression that you wear a lot of different hats.
I do.
In this organisation, but I also get the impression that they've got a reasonable amount of staff. Is that correct?
Yeah, we have close to about 70 people on staff, about 100 paid and unpaid employees. I'm director of IT, so I take care of all of the IT work that happens there, including the web. So I do the web because I want to. It wasn't part of my job description, but it was kind of one of those things where it's like, if he also knows it, then let's let him do it. So yeah, so I take care of all the web stuff, all of the IT stuff, and then networking.
So obviously I presume that how many websites does the church that you are actively managing for the church now?
Yeah, we have a multi-site, WordPress multi-site. We have about 4 different sites that run on that. We had upwards of about 6 or 7, and we ended up kind of folding those into the mother site. So we're not, dealing with as much multi-site type stuff. For folks out there, as kind of a cautionary tale, don't run multi-site if you don't have to.
Oh, is that bad, actually?
Yeah.
I've got developers that do it for me, so I don't know. Jason, we're going to move into our break, and we'll come back, and I think in the break we're going to talk how you got the podcast started and the amount of work you have to put in it, and then also with my co-host talk some tech about sound and how you edited it. Be back soon, folks.
Want to turn your WordPress website into an online speed machine? Go on over to WP-Tonic. They'll set up DigitalOcean websites hosting on solid-state drives. And while you're there, don't forget to sign up for WP-Tonic's maintenance packages. WP-Tonic offers some of the very best WordPress maintenance packages on the market. So those who are serious about getting the very best platform for their WordPress sites, make sure you go on over to WP-Tonic.com. Okay, we're coming back off the break, but Jonathan's going to go and finish up WP Watercooler about some details and information. Go ahead, Jonathan.
So you, when did you start WP Watercooler?
Oh, so I had to go look because it's been a while. So we started September 24th, 2012 was when we first started. We've been doing this for quite a while now, at least the way I see it. And kind of herding cats is what I end up calling it.
You do it very effectively with a degree of calmness that I admire. So can you give some insights? Because it's a great idea to start a podcast, but can you give some idea to the listeners and the viewers on YouTube and on the website the kind of amount of work you have to put into it?
It's a ton of work. So the whole idea of wrangling cats, which, trying to get all the folks that are going to be on the show, figure out a topic. And then once we figured out a topic, we need to find some of the key folks that should be on the show. And then we have what we call like our regulars or our, co-hosts that we have. We have about 5 of them. And so we pull in those people and say, okay, here's, you're going to be on the show. And then here's all these extra people that we have. And we've done all sorts of different kind of, different topics relating to both like WordCamps and doing recaps of WordCamps, which are pretty popular. And then we also do stuff where it's just, talking about, WordPress web development or design or social media or any of those sorts of things. So we pull in the right people, and we've had some cool, some cool people show up. We've had vice president of GoDaddy show up. We've had Matt Mullenweg on the show. So we've had other folks as well. So it's sometimes I forget who was on the show, and I'll meet them and they're like, "Oh, thank you for having me on your show." And I'm like, oh boy,
Jason, that happens to me during the show. So how many? I found it's kind of thinking up ideas and some structure to it. That takes a bit of time, and all the emailing.
Mm-hmm.
So how many? So what? Can you give some insight of your kind of? Do you have a kind of set procedure where you? Planning them and give some insight about that, Jason?
Yeah, I sure do. On either Saturday or Sunday, I'll send out an email that just says, here's our topic, who wants to join, click on the link and you can subscribe, you can get RSVP onto the show. So we do that and we use MailChimp to send that out. And that's just a manual, mailing that we do. We already have the template already set up. And I'm saying we as the royal we, not as the collective of people that are on the show. None of those people do anything other than talk. So I'll take that and send that out. And then people will, say that they'll want to be on the show, an RSVP. And then after that, we send out a MailChimp mailing after the show saying, hey, we recorded this, go check it out. And now that we do WP Blab, that also gets kind of included into that email as well. And we use RSS, the RSS mailing through MailChimp to take care of that. So I don't even do any of it. It just automatically happens.
Yeah. So where do you get your ideas from? What the shows are going to be about?
Chris Lemma.
Oh, yes.
So I text message Chris Lemon and I say, or Steve Zanga, text message both of them and I say, okay, guys, so here's what we're going to do. What do you think? And then they say, well, I hate that idea. So we're going to do this instead. And I go, okay, perfect. And then we run with that.
Yeah, I've learned not to resist any decent suggestion.
No, none whatsoever. So I've had a few of them come in where it's my idea and I'm like, okay, this is what we're going to do. And, it worked out just fine. But we've also had, some really great ideas from listeners where they'll just text in or text in, they'll send a tweet or something like that and say, you guys should really talk about social media buttons or you should really talk about whatever. And, we have over 199 episodes now, total, 176 actual episodes. So we've talked about everything and now we're getting to a point where we're now talking about it twice. We're going back and saying, hey, back in 2000 whatever, we should, we talked about this. Let's revisit that topic. Things have changed.
So have you got any kind of, with the amount of, because you said in our pre-discussions that you've done a lot of podcasting.
Mm-hmm.
So have you got any tips and tricks or reflections about if somebody's thinking about getting into podcasting, things that you learned the hard way, just a couple of insights?
Yeah, I'm of the mind of, if you're going to put out really good content, put really good content out, but you also want to have a halfway decent sounding show. You listen to your own stuff, listen to it in the car, listen to it with horrible headphones, listen to it with really great headphones. try all those types of things out and see what it's going to sound like. And if you can't listen to it yourself, then you probably are doing something wrong.
That's why Blab turning them into podcasts the last couple of weeks has really had some problems. It's taken some magic with Adobe Audition, declicking. And I just verified today that it's definitely a Blab issue. Now, if I were to record an MP, like an RL5 on a mixer with a loop, we'd probably be okay, which I need to go back to. That's so important what you just said. Hey, Jason, I'm going to jump in for a second. Last year I did a test. I did a separate show, and I did 12 interviews of high-end podcasters. And because of, Rob Welch, some of these high-end guys, Dave Jackson, Olson, and that was a great show. And I know him, but we came to the conclusion after I did these 12 that this is not prime time to be a separate podcast about podcasting. So I took 6 of those, I put them on timelines, and I started playing this new timeline thing. I'm convinced now more than ever, before you do a podcast, you should do a blab like you're doing the WP Watercooler Blab or whatever it is.
WP Blab.
And just put it right up. Do a great website, post it, learn all the tricks in there because it comes live. That may be a better use of your time than trying to create a podcast if you don't know how to create a podcast.
I totally agree. I call that episode 0. The idea where you're gonna play around and figure out what works for you and what doesn't work for you. Have your friends, family, and your mom and dad listen to it and figure out what's good and bad about it, and then run with it.
Jonathan and I just did that on a real estate show, and we did about 38 actually using Blab primarily. Got some really great interviews, and we just put up 3 or 4. And in fact, Jonathan, I haven't checked, but it should be up on iTunes, I would guess.
It is, Bill. Thank you for doing it.
It is up. It's physically up now. Good.
But we've done 39 shows before it, but we just we initially did it through Google Hangout, and then we moved to Blab, and they're on the YouTube because I've got my WP-Tonic, Jason, which is my maintenance company, and then I've got this crazy SaaS product that I built in WordPress called Mailwrite, which is a crazy thing, isn't it, Bill?
Oh yeah, a lot of money. I learned a lot about development watching you through the process.
You learned how I spent money.
How to delegate.
Spending gobs of money on it.
I do a lot like you, Jason. I'm sort of behind the scenes technical stuff. And Jonathan
I will say that if you want to have really good, high quality audio, the best way to do it is to not have the audio go over the internet. And, doing like a double ender or a triple ender or something like that, where you're having the recording happen locally, and then take that local recording and send it to somebody like Bill, who's going to sit there and listen for the clap or listen for the whatever, and then try to figure out, how to shove that together. Yeah. And I've done that. And now there's tools out there that actually do that for you. So I don't know if you guys have looked at Mixler, but MIXLR is pretty awesome. And it's a great way to kind of do this type of thing where it just happens, and you can get somebody who's a very novice to be able to be on the show and not have to know how to do, audio, IT work or anything like that in order to be able to make things happen.
There's some other stuff out there that's really nice. We can record separate channels online. And Skype is still good. Skype with call recorder still works well.
Yeah.
So we're going to go on to your principles, Bill.
Yeah, since this is we put this in with timelines. One thing we've discovered by accident is we actually have timelines is up 7 days a week, but we have dual RSS feeds. And it really helps the RSS feed grow. Actually, it's not a negative to have them on 2 RSS feeds because it leans it over to it and helps it build faster. So we're going to be on timelines here too. In the interview, we're going to ask about 3 life and success principles. And the first one you said was make awesome daily. What's that mean to you?
Make awesome daily, for me, it's the idea that that I take something that someone maybe isn't able to do 100% of the work, or they're really stuck and they're trying to figure out how to do it. And they can come to me and say, hey, Jason, or anybody in the collective group, and say, hey, can you help me out with this? And so I jump in and help them out. And I want to make sure that I'm able to, to kind of help other people do, better with what they're doing. Also, make awesome daily it just sounds cool.
So live by grace. What's that mean to you?
Yeah. Working at a church, living by grace means just to kind of, it's one of those really churchy, like you would see it like on a book cover with like doves flying off of it with like with like a ray of sunlight behind it or something. But the idea of living by grace is just to make sure that when things aren't going your way, that you take a second and you just think about it before you react. And so working in the support industry that I do, doing IT tech support as well as being director of IT, I have a lot of that. And I'm hoping that other people kind of live by grace a little bit too, because I need a little bit of leniency here and there as well, you know?
Right. Hey, quick commercial for your church. What's the name of your church and what's your website?
Yeah, it's evfreefullerton.com, and EV Free Fullerton is the name of the church. EV Free. Yep, Free. And then Fullerton, that's the name of the town that's in.
Fullerton. I know Orange County well. I grew up in Costa Mesa, Newport. So
yeah.
There is. So I just put the link in there. Very good. So next and final is work late. I like that. I can relate to that. Work late, other than sleep cycle.
Yeah. It's not my favorite thing. It's not my favorite thing, but it also means that I can get more work done. And sometimes work isn't actually work. It's just having that downtime where you can just go, okay, I need to sit here for a second and just kind of relax a little bit. I need to watch a little bit of Netflix. I need to poke around on my phone a little bit. I need to, whatever, just watch YouTube videos. I mean, I watch a ridiculous amount of YouTube videos. I'd imagine a lot of you guys do as well. So, it's just take that time to kind of, to be by myself and think a little bit. And so that's what I do.
I was a reservist, came back from Afghanistan, one tour. I watched YouTube videos for 2 months, just zoned.
Yeah.
It's addicting.
Yeah. It explains a lot, Bill.
Yeah, Jonathan, secret spy, secret agent here.
It does explain an enormous amount, actually. But there we go.
So that's good. Let's go to our final break, Jonathan, and we'll come back. We'll do how Jason Tucker, how we can get a hold of him for the listener. Then one last question. Open it up to the Blab audience and get off the podcast so I don't have to edit all day. Buying or selling a home in the greater Reno Tahoe area? I know the best CRS real estate broker, and that's Karen Conrad. And you can find her at KarenConrad.com or call her directly at 775-527-7021. Okay, Jason, we're coming back from the break, and we just want to know, how can the listener get a hold of you? Give us a quick commercial, and then Jonathan will ask one last question.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. Jason Tucker is my name on Twitter. I also I run a whole bunch of different sites. Probably the one that relates most to podcasting and stuff is WPmedia.pro, where I do some articles and tips and tricks about how to do podcasting, how to record your first podcast. And, it's kind of all the things that most podcasting folks do is they want to kind of share a little bit of their insight. There's nothing on here that's like paid or anything like that. So feel free to just go pop around on there and take a look at it.
So I'm thinking of my last question. I'm going to use an old favourite, actually. I'm going to use one of my can favourites, Jason. So
okay.
What is there one thing that you like to share with us that most viewers or listeners don't know about you, Jason?
Okay. So let's see here. So I've ran 2 other podcasts. I did a podcast called Geek Fit, which was a health and fitness podcast. That was before, and there was a new Geek Fit, Geek-Fit, that's out now. I still own Geek Fit, so if you're interested in the domain name, we can make something happen. So there's that, and then the other is don't ever do a podcast with your wife. So my wife and I did a podcast together.
It was become a wife in some ways.
So my wife and I used to sit right here, and we would have 2 microphones going, and we would talk.
Bitch.
Oh my God.
Oh, boy. So my wife and I did a podcast together. And so what we did is we would essentially bitch and complain about our kids. Like that was the thing on the show, was to do this, right? And they called this back then, this is during like the podcast media, expos and all that stuff from way back in the day. And so they had this term called couple casting, and we were part of a couple cast. So it was her and I would do these couple casts. And there's other couples that were out there that were doing podcasts, and we would call into each other's shows and we'd leave voicemails. And I've been doing podcasting for far too long. I don't want to date myself here. So, but the idea was just being able to do those sorts of things. So yeah, don't do a podcast with your wife. All sorts of
marriage still survived. It's like that awful.
It still survived. It survived.
Right. All right. I'm still having visions of what.
Hey, with that, we're going to finish. finish up the podcast. Wave goodbye. Stay on so we can come back and just talk.
Yes, folks, we're going to have an additional discussion with Uncle Jason and talk about more about his crazy experience. So if you want to hear that, folks, go either to WP-Tonic's YouTube channel or go to the website and you'll be able to listen and see more of this kind of crazy interview.
And you can head over to timelinesofsuccess.com. Way too long of a domain name. Timelinesofsuccess.com. Or Timelines Netcast. It'll point to it. Or Timelines whatever. Hey, thank you, Jason. And that's the end of the podcast. Everyone stay on. Thank you, Blab audience, for listening in to us. It's time for you to come on and ask questions and give support. Also, we're going to do a little bit of, after the show, review a couple WordPress sites and grade those sites.
Ooh.